welcome everybody. And for whatever reason, we couldn't get the links going just now. So, hey, welcome everybody to Spin Legal with myself, Peter Giblett, and with herself, Angela Browne. Welcome, Angela. How are you doing today?
Thank you. We kind of got ourselves into a little pickle there. We were putting ourselves up with True Politics, which is another one of the podcasts that we work with.
Yeah, and I don't understand why that occurred. Okay, so before we get anywhere, we've got 2 weeks to go now. Spin Legal is moving to Tuesdays in 2 weeks' time, June 17th, 2025. So put that in your calendar, put it in your diary, mark put a spike through it. Oh, not through your screen.
Make sure you know, because Tuesdays, because we found out that there's a couple of events that periodically we're going to be doing things on Wednesdays, and then on Wednesday, June 18th, we're going to be away from the office. We'll be doing some other things, and then we got lots of hearings.
We got things to do. Okay, so if you need to call Invictus, you can do so on 905-688-5598 or email Angela at weareinvictus.legal or me at peter@weareinvictus.legal, or go visit our website at weareinvictus.legal. Okay, so our topic for today is using video evidence. Now, first thing we've become, probably about 10 years ago, there wasn't a spot on the planet that hadn't been photographed, right? Now we can probably safely say there isn't a spot on the planet except maybe your bedroom that hasn't been videoed.
Yep, because what we've done now, like a long time ago, there was a show called Candid Camera. Some of you may remember them, particularly the older people here, where people would actually film people on camera doing silly things. And then they'd say, "You're on Candid Camera." And people would win prizes at the end.
I don't know that any of those Candid Camera episodes have ever been tied up to geolocation. The one thing about both, from a legal perspective these days, that it's a little thing called metadata. It can geolocate any picture anywhere in the world, and that operates for both video and normal still pictures.
Like Google Earth.
Almost everything can be captured on video, which means there are positives and negatives about video evidence, of course.
Yep.
All right. Hey, we had somebody came in a few weeks ago, said, "I've got everything on the video. I've got everything that they did on the video." But it also showed him throwing a punch. He forgot about that one. That was a bit problematic. We can't use that, because the problem here is that it's like the same that situation. It's like I'm saying I'm good. I can use the evidence. I've got 3 minutes and 37 seconds of my evidence that shows how perfect I was in the situation. The trouble is that Angela's got 4 minutes and 27 seconds showing how much of a moron I was.
Just be very careful with these videos. And there are experts out there who can determine whether the video has been edited. And they can also determine whether that was a whole video of an event, or whether there were cuts in the videos and then showing selective scenes in it.
Yeah. And the point being is, well, in fact, actually, we want to go selective scenes. Hey, we only need to wind the clock back to the 70s to Watergate, to audio evidence, right?
Oh yeah, wasn't there 18 minutes missing or something?
There was some key number of minutes that have been cut out of Richard Nixon's White House tapes.
Oh yes.
I think you're talking about 18 minutes. I thought it was slightly less, but still.
And that's when they started talking about things like where they were going to plan on breaking into the Democratic National Headquarters, or different things.
and clearly, the president taking part in planning a crime.
Yep. I'm not a crook.
Yeah, we're not going to. we're not going to make any allegations here, but basically, the use of audio evidence is an old thing, so it goes back to the 70s. So there have been rules about audio evidence, how you can use what you captured for quite a long time now.
Mm-hmm. And audio evidence too is also put into, when we put it into the court, sometimes you have to have an expert to back it up to ensure that this is correct and that it's an unedited version. Okay, because to put it into the court, there's a lot of new risks coming up with both audio and video, but we need to talk about how it applies in legal.
Yeah, but there are, of course, differences between audio and video that are captured on these devices than the old-fashioned tape-to-tape type machines, which Tricky Dicky used. Love him, gotta love him, right? But there's a heck of a lot of difference because videotape is an entirely different beast than digital audio or digital video. And hey, I can set my camera up in my pocket, walk around with it in my pocket, taking videos all the time. Mm-hmm. You don't, it is what it is, and there's a lot of people that do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to, I had this situation a few months back whereby the tenant said, "Oh, it's okay. I'm going to video everything. I've got a landlord coming to visit my apartment, so I'm going to video everything that he videos."
So he's going to video the person who's doing the video.
Yep. Yep.
And that person's videoing you, videoing him, doing the videos.
Well, I think what he was talking about was surreptitiously videoing him.
Oh.
So if the person was walking around the room and they were taking pictures, for example, of personal belongings, what would happen is the tenant, so the landlord would be in this position here taking his picture, and the tenant, as the landlord moves off, would take the picture here to show that in fact there's nothing here of value other than taking personal images that the landlord was taking pictures of.
Yeah.
Right?
So these things, like when you're looking at video images, like this is very often introduced into landlord and tenant court for various reasons. Like either the tenant is complaining because the landlord's coming in, not even knocking on the door, just opening the door, or things are not working. So the person will turn on the tap and say, "See, my water isn't working." Or they'll take a tour around the house to show how the ceilings are caving in and other problems are happening. And maybe even a rat infestation they might even want to show. So there's a lot of different reasons why a tenant would want to do that. And a landlord may want to do that to show damages in a house.
But again, I have to say that, talking about rat infestation, I was talking to a tenant the other week that was talking about rat infestation, and said, so I said, "Have you captured any on video or on pictures?" "No, I haven't, but I can hear them in the wall." and they came up and they said, "Hey, listen to this video. You can hear them in the wall clearly. It goes click, 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 click." The trouble is the video was nondescript, didn't say a thing to me.
It even could have been a squirrel, could have been anything.
It could have been anything. And in fact, it could have been like me scratching on the mic, right?
Could have been anybody trying to do things. Yeah. Like until you see a live rat with a cute little snout and the whiskers and the little beady eyes coming out, you're not going to say it's a rat.
And sometimes the other thing about that is, of course, what you capture is kind of quite telling, isn't it? Because that rat scurrying away where all you catch is a flippy floppy tail, which could be a rat, could be a mouse, could be a cat, when watched back over time. And hey, I'm not accusing anybody of lying, but just think of it from the viewpoint of the just think of it from the viewpoint of the person adjudicating your case, the judge.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right, the judge or the adjudicator in a landlord and tenant board, for example.
Like rats don't stick around. Like you don't say cheese, and they'll.
Yeah, they're not like your putty cat who kind of is sleeping on the pillow, going, "Hello, take a nice picture of me," or I'll put my stomach out to make it even nicer, right? The rat isn't going to do that. The rat,
no, they don't listen to stuff like that.
Yeah. And the other question about this is kind of what you capture versus what the other party captures.
Yeah.
And for example, the obvious point about that is, you're complaining about your landlord. Just say in this example, I'm your landlord. You capture the thing to say, my landlord beat me up, but I was the perfect lady to him. I never said anything. But the trouble is, you've got a video that shows you being the perfect lady for 4 minutes and 12 seconds, right? I've got then the video for the next 5 minutes and 10 seconds that shows you landing punches up my nose, and hey, how my tooth is coming out, things like that, right?
These things have little time logs on them too, so you have to be careful.
Yeah, and as you said, there are people that can actually validate whether these are, true images or what.
Yeah. And this is why you have to be very careful if you're going to plan to use videos. Make sure it's accurate.
Yeah.
Make sure it's done properly. And sometimes photos are worth more than just a video, because sometimes.
Yeah. Exactly. So what you captured versus what the other person captured is vital. And I think, and I was just going to get there, sometimes a high quality still photograph expresses more. A rat captured on a picture of a captured rat has more value than a fuzzy image scurrying away.
Yep, because then you can just take a picture of their little snout and their whiskers and their little beady eyes, and then you can kind of see in the background that this is your house, that rat shouldn't be there, or it's got caught in some rat trap or something, and you got him.
Yeah. And the point being is that, hey, you've just expressed what you need to express, and I've got rats in my house. It's my, the landlord did nothing about it. I've got rats in my house.
Yep, and it has a date on the bottom of the photo, then an email to the landlord. I've got rats. What are you going to do about it? Then there's other rats a month later. Nothing's been done, so you have something to show a paper trail.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk for a moment about the legality of capturing video images, because we live in, when it comes to audio recording, we live in a one party permission province, right? If I'm recording a conversation on an audio recorder, I need to be present in the room, but I'm giving permission to capture that audio.
Yeah, you need to be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting down with Peter and Justin and Sajiv. They're sitting down and we're having a conversation. We could talk about how well the Blue Jays went and how lousy the New York Yankees went, and we can talk all about it.
I like it, but still.
Just thought I'd throw that one in there, just to sting someone.
I can
record that conversation and listen to Peter's. No, that's not right.
and actually, but anyway, going on, The point being,
so I can do that. That's legal to do. I don't even have to ask anybody to record that because I'm part of that conversation. But if I was sitting in a restaurant,
but if I put my audio capture device down on the table and walk out the room, that's an entirely different story, isn't it?
That's an entirely different story. Then you have to ask the people in the room if it's okay to capture that.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually the best way to do it is to have them consent on the tape.
Okay, so there is a question in regards to that, of course, is that police. Police record pretty well. If you're going, if you're going to the police station because you've been accused of committing a crime, police are going to record everything, aren't they?
Oh, yes, they have to. I mean, now they got these body cams and other things. They have to. Some of it's for self-preservation, okay? Because they want to make sure nobody sues them for whatever they're about to do, okay? That they're following the right steps and so forth. And another thing too is also maybe they can capture a crime in the process of making, like if somebody's running a drug house.
Yeah, but 90% of the reason why cops use body cams is not because they happen to catch a crime in action. That's I think thumbs up if that ever happens. But that's rare. That's an oddity. More likely, what is happening here is that you've got an interaction between a cop and another person. Let's call it on a street corner. And the person on the street corner who the cop basically just interrupted and said on 9 o'clock one evening and asked some questions about because there was a recent burglary around the corner that he heard over the radio. And this particular individual matched the description of the burglar. Perfectly legal thing for the cop to do.
Yeah.
Now, the large part about the reason why the cops video that interaction is because there have been so many accusations in the past about the cop doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they did is basically the cop is largely, or the police force is largely protecting themselves.
Yeah.
It also helps them, it also helps them weed out bad cops or identify cops that need retraining.
Oh, yes.
Right. Yep. But then, of course, you've got, as well as the cop body cam, you've got the anti-cop cam, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Body cam for the would-be suspect.
Yep. There are people who film police in their activities.
Well, the other question is so I know of a situation whereby a person was wearing one of these anti-police body cams, his own body cam, and he also had in his car up above by the mirror, he had a dash cam.
Mm-hmm.
And because what happened is he was stopped for doing something, and the dash cam had, of course, all the evidence that he wasn't speeding. He pulled the SIM card out of the dash cam, and the cop, when he stopped him, saw the dash cam and leant in to go and get the SIM card out of the dash cam, which of course there was no SIM card because it had already been pulled. Mm-hmm. And then he made accusations about the suspect having removed the SIM card, various accusations pursued. But because it was on double body cam, right, the person had removed the SIM card, but they could use it in their defense.
Absolutely. And the thing is, this is one of the things is that we've had, there were cases where people have been threatened by police because they were videotaping cops as the police were doing something that may have been less than honorable, and how they were treating.
Not necessarily illegal, but less than honorable.
Yeah. And then the cops got mad. They threatened the people who were videotaping them. And basically, people don't have, there's no prohibition on filming cops in their actions, particularly if there's something going on that maybe shouldn't be.
But again, how many times have you seen things like pictures of cops on the street corner just showed up? They've gotten out of their police car where the sirens are blazing, and everybody's got the camera in. Mm-hmm. There's 162 people on those various corners, and every one of them has got the camera in hand.
Yep. And they have to be aware that everybody's got cell phones nowadays, and this is what's happening. People As soon as the police get out, they say, "Oh, good, good. Let's get the cell phones out." Taking a picture of it. When all the cop is really doing is he's stopping because he has to get into that donut shop. I mean,
Okay, so we know that here in Canada we live in a one-party permission state.
yeah,
Right, because we have one criminal law for the whole of Canada. The section of the criminal code that discusses audio recordings basically allows permits audio recordings. So it's section 183. Basically, section 183, 184, 185 cover actually recordings and the use of recordings. And if I'm doing any form of communications, because it talks about communications, not audio, not video, communications.
yeah, communication. So recording of communications.
Yes.
Yeah, and video could be a recording of communications.
Yeah.
Like someone recording this podcast right now.
Yeah. And as a one-party province, as a one-party, I have to say country, because it would be universal across the whole of Canada, because
that's a Canada criminal code.
Yeah.
Because there's laws about surveillance, and then those are exceptions about surveillance.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing surveillance if you are part of the conversation or the discussion or the communications. So if there's multiple people, you and one other person, or you and several other people, it's as long as there's one person doing the consent, and that person can be you.
Yeah, and for example, it's the legality of capturing video images is typically also covers that it's done in public places. For example, out on the street, for example, in a public area of a company, maybe even private offices in a company where there's multiple people in that private office, right? That may well be done. But for example, and just to utilize that, typically like inside homes, it might be acceptable to take pictures in the living room, but it certainly, in the kitchen, but it certainly isn't.
Like, don't go opening the medicine cabinet and taking pictures of it, or going into the bedroom.
I was going to say it's not permissible to be taking pictures or videos of the bedroom or the bathroom, and whatever you might find in there.
Yeah, unless that person is consenting, or if this is or if it's a real estate type of thing. Because sometimes you have a room for showing.
Yeah, in a real estate
there has to be permission by the person who is selling the house. They have to have some permission to have that. But the person, if it's a tenanted home, they have to be extremely careful, not going to a place where they can see tenants' personal belongings, like their clothing, their bedroom, their bed set, their go and opening their medicine cabinets, anything like that. You can't be doing that. You have to be very careful. Like just go in, show the living room, show the space, show how far it is, show the views from the window, show how you can do this. And these things could actually be, there's a program now that you can use from real estate where you can actually take the inside of the place and you can actually show it how it would be sold, right? Without any of the furniture. They actually have that where you can actually remove all the furniture from it, and then you can see the size of the rooms and the dimensions and everything that people might want to actually see.
Yeah. And those are interesting, actually. I've never tried one in my room. But there's another issue about video, of course, is that, hey, me and my wife invite you and your husband around for a meal, and we also invite, Justin and his wife, and Mary and her husband, and so on and so forth. And, again, video within, the living area might well be acceptable, but private spaces like offices or bedrooms would not be.
No, like we can videotape each other like afterwards, and someone's playing guitar and singing, and
Yeah.
or playing games, and that sort of thing. Because whenever there's family get-togethers, there's always videos afterwards. Okay,
And then,
telling
you know,
jokes.
and then if cousin Mary goes off with with Uncle Paul, and they kind of have this private liaison wherever, that stays private.
Yeah. Even
Right?
though everybody there knows about it and they suspect.
Well, I would think cousin John's wife might like to know about it.
Oh yeah, she'd be very curious.
She might be very curious about it, but that's another topic entirely.
Yeah,
Okay.
like curiosity kills a cat and satisfaction brings it back.
Yeah. So the question here is, if you just said, if you're going through, for example, to video a tenanted house, or if you're a landlord doing an inspection of a tenanted house, then don't take pictures of people's private activities, or their couch laden with the clothes they've just thrown off their back.
Yeah, or what kind of magazines they read, or if they have personal letters from people, or like.
And after all, somebody else reading a porno magazine is not relevant.
Yeah, that's not relevant.
No relevance.
Are they paying rent? Yeah. Are they wrecking your place? Who cares if they have a few editions of Playboy?
Quite. It's not your
thing.
It's not your right as a landlord to even go look at that kind of stuff.
You can't judge them.
Now,
that's their right to do whatever they want.
There are some rules about this because, for example, one of the questions becomes hoarding. When is personal property beyond personal property to a state of hoarding?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a very key question. It's not one that I've not found too much case law on that. Have you?
For a personal property to become,
if, for example, what you're doing is you're saying you've raised an N5 in a landlord and tenant case to say, hey, the tenant is hoarding.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So the hoarder is, well,
you're taking pictures.
There's lots of information about hoarding.
Yeah.
And there are cases about hoarding, and I've handled cases about hoarding. But you have to be very, very careful with them.
Yeah.
Because the people who are doing the hoarding will never admit that they're doing the hoarding. Okay, so they have to introduce accommodations, mental health.
But again, taking the pictures of the hoarded living room, for example, is very difficult.
Yeah, you could.
Right? Because technically you're taking pictures of people's personal belongings.
Technically, yes, but as long as you're not taking pictures of something that could be considered private, like say maybe a letter from somebody, or personal clothing, like if somebody.
But for example, if what you're doing is 3 6-foot-high piles of newspapers, not that anybody's got newspapers anymore, but 3 piles of them just inside the front door, that may be a clear example of hoarding.
Yeah, so those things you can take a picture of, but you don't take close-ups. You just take a picture to show where it is relative to the rest of the room.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I've had to do that.
Yeah.
And then what we do is then we know that there is a problem, and then we introduce that to the tenant and ask them what type of help they need. And there are programs, although they're not often exercised, but there are programs in some cases people might get referred to that will help them prevent an eviction by de-hoarding themselves.
Yeah, and in all honesty, in these kinds of cases, probably a still photograph, a high quality still photograph, is preferable to video.
Yeah, exactly, because it just shows like somebody's buried alive.
Yeah,
there is actually one of those reality TV shows called Buried Alive, and another one's called The Hoarders.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, and so moving on. I suppose we just talked about this one a little while ago, but let's go back to this one. The illicit affair. Obviously, clearly, it's evidence that might well come up in a divorce trial, but it's not kind of the evidence that you're going to take of your husband having an affair, having a fling with the next door neighbor. Right. Yeah. It would have to be presented by a private investigator.
Yep.
It would have to be done to certain standards. We're not making a porno flick here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, you're suspecting your spouse is committing infidelity of some sort. So you hire a private investigator, and I says, I just want to make sure. I want to find out what he's doing. So he often stays late at work. He's out on so-called business trips, so forth. So the private investigator will do a little bit of surveillance, try to find out where he goes after work, what he does at work, if there is anything at work. Then they will find out where he goes. So if he's not going straight home, they'll follow him, find out where he's going, to some sleazebag hotel or whatever. Hey, there could be things like that, and then see who he meets. Hey, but he's not going to go in there or take pictures through the window to see what they do.
But again, they might take enough pictures through the window if that is publicly available, just enough to show that, hey, that person is cheating.
Yeah, or maybe have their arms around each other or something.
Yeah.
You know, there's different ways to kind of show.
They're both stark naked.
Yeah.
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 With their arms around each other or something of that nature.
Yeah.
We're not going for a porno flick here.
Yeah, we're not paid by Pornhub or XXX or Hamster. Yeah. These things you don't get paid by those people. Right? So so basically, what you're doing is you're using that as evidence, and that way the person gets that evidence that they need, and then they can bring that to a court so they get a for-cause divorce.
And the private investigator would have to be there in order to give evidence about that.
Yeah, they bring the private investigator in, then he shows the evidence to the judge, and then he explains how that was obtained. Because private investigators can do that type of surveillance, but you or I can't. We can't be following our neighbors and taking pictures of what they're doing inside their house.
Yeah, I know my neighbor from number 67 is having an affair with the lady in Green Avenue, right?
Yep, exactly. And I just want to see it happen. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they law
to do, because there's laws against that.
Yeah, the law doesn't accommodate your private perversions.
Yep, exactly.
Right. And okay, so there is, obviously,
the private investigators know their limits, and they don't go too far. They just know their limits, what they need to do in order to prove what they need to prove, and that's it.
Yeah. And we're talking about things like, porno movies, etc. That's all dealt with by other means. That's not illicit. That's not sorts of things.
Porno movies are done usually with people's consent, and they show them. Hey, it's illegal when you start involving minors.
Yeah.
Or anything that could hurt somebody in the process.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but again, that's a question of evidence, right?
Yeah. So those are things that are done through a different means, and that's usually a different type of issue that we're looking at, as opposed to what we're talking about here.
All right. The interception of communications, Section 184 of the Criminal Code, is generally silent. It talks about communications, not about specific types of communications.
Yeah, even internet communications.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And in fact, actually, as you say, we were talking about Richard Nixon, 1975, when he resigned because of the Watergate affair. He had audios that would have been done on traditional audio, reel-to-reel type audio tapes.
Yeah.
That's a whole different ball game than these little devices that can record audio, that can record video, and they're in our pocket.
Yeah. wait till I get my 16 iPhone Pro Max. So that's going to be an interesting one.
So you're going to have it in your pocket, just recording everything, eh?
Yep. I'll have it recording, and I'll record Peter as I talk to Peter, and Peter's cursing and
Better not
swearing.
pick my nose then, had I? Better
Yep.
not pick my nose, had I, you know?
Oh, Peter's swearing at his computer or knocking things around and getting frustrated with things, because kicking at inanimate objects really helps.
Oh, yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. Okay. Okay, so in terms of video, okay, so let's talk about something we haven't talked about, which is fake videos. Right?
And
so
some
fake
of them
videos,
look fully real.
fake videos, let's be honest about it. Ever since the advent of the film industry, we've had fake videos.
Yep.
Right?
And with artificial intelligence, it's getting worse.
Well, I was going to, without even bringing AI into the picture, fake videos have been around for 150 years.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Let's face it, you know, for television, we want the guy having the affair because it makes good TV. We want the cop shooting down the robber because it makes good TV.
Yeah, you just have 2 sets of films or more sets of films, and you just run them in concurrently.
Yeah.
Right, which has been done. That's how you do it, so that you don't actually have people physically doing these things. Okay, so it looks like it, then you'll have that.
Yeah.
Okay? This is the same way they make videos for music videos and stuff. It's very interesting.
Yeah. And the whole point is that, you know, yeah, exactly. The whole we've had a whole video industry for the last 150 years that has been largely about fantasy. Right? Fantasy videos, factual videos are all been part of our lives for a long time. Yep. Now, it's true that the metadata that you might, you know, there's no metadata for the film Casablanca. Right? It's way too old for the advent of metadata. And even if you're watching a new film that's just coming out, I think Mission Impossible came out last week, the new Mission Impossible film. So there's no metadata on Mission Impossible film. Right?
How about Jurassic Park, when they had all these dinosaurs and people were living at the same time as the dinosaurs, but they still managed to film them. So things like that are done in a way that that looks real when you look at it on the screen, but when you're filming them, you know it's not.
Yeah.
They have certain imagery, how they produce it.
Well, and the interesting thing is
created.
And the interesting thing is, you see the jaw coming in from here, and you see me jump back as the would-be dinosaur snaps when my head was.
Yep.
Right.
You got a T-Rex jumping up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I get saved because I jump back, and the dinosaur comes in and tries for me.
Someone else jumps in, saves you, grabs you, and then you start running. Yeah, it's.
But again, so the other question, of course, is that when it comes to fake videos, and hey, I know I'm jokingly labeling fictional videos as fake, but there are plenty of videos that have been used in evidence that are fake as well.
Yep. There are videos that way where they show only one thing or they focus on something, but they change the background. There's ways of doing that to make it look like it's done somewhere else.
And we haven't even talked about AI yet.
Nope.
Right. Yeah. So we're, you know, and hey, AI pictures and video, you know, that changes the whole everything. Right.
And this is what they call the deep fake.
Yeah. 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 And deep being an important thing, because not only has it put together an image of, let's say, just take an example out. Not only has it put an image of me and you kissing together, right, which never happened, but it's put a whole backstory in place.
Yep.
right?
It actually shows like people actually talking to one another and doing this. And I've actually saw during the election, I saw videos of people actually talking and introducing policies and everything else. And this were deep fake.
Yeah.
Like there's an AI company that Elon Musk just created, but I'm sure there's other AI companies that do it. But there's something called Grok. Right? They
What's
have a
that?
signature right on the lower right-hand corner, so you know the picture was created through AI.
Yeah.
Whether it's Grok, whether it's some other AI type of firm that created it, but it's very interesting. And you just basically, when you're creating the AI, there's ways of expressing it. You ask for it to create it in a certain way. You get an image of a certain politician or a person,
Yeah.
famous person or whatever, and you put them on film, and then they're talking about selling you Bitcoin or something like that and trying to attract investment. Oh, with just $350, you can make it last go up to $1 million. There were things showing up during the federal election like that, with Mark Carney doing this, Justin Trudeau doing this. I think even Polyev. Hey, they're having different people show these things, and I just say, I think that there has to be some restriction on this type of thing.
Well, it's an
Because
area.
they can also be defamatory.
It's an area for future actually,
Future
I said
opportunities for
legislation,
litigation.
but future statutes as well, because as you said, you could make two people who don't even know each other have an affair.
Yeah,
Through
exactly. And you can make them have an affair. You can get two celebrities who don't know each other, never met.
Yeah.
Okay? Or Michael Jackson could be made back to life again and have somebody have an affair with him. Like, this is so bizarre.
Yeah, exactly. And all you need to do in order to repeat that, and we're getting to the stage of advanced capability on AI, where those sort of things are becoming much more possible.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. This is where we have to be very, very vigilant. And elections, around the use of it, like for workplace, for crime issues, like for reporting issues, right, for crime, things like that. We have to be very, very careful that whatever we're producing is authentic.
Yeah.
Okay? Because if we're producing a lot of inauthentic stuff, there should be some charges available that could be put against somebody who produces something knowingly inauthentically. Okay? Like using AI, because you don't want AI to control us. We want to be able to control AI. Use it for where it's good. Make our movies, make our Jurassic.
Well, I was going to say the more important uses of AI isn't about making movies. It's about having a personal assistant that can do a lot of the boring tasks that I don't want to do.
Diarize, answer our phones, do routine tasks.
Answer the phones, talk to Joe, boring client Joe while I talk to interesting client Mary.
Yeah. Or I could just say, can you do the dishes? My house.
Unfortunately, Angela, AI doesn't have any embodiment.
Oh,
they're not a robot. They're not an android, I'm afraid.
Well, maybe that's one thing that we can look at in the future to get some androids.
Actually,
there's Android phones.
Yeah, interesting thing is about that is that if you wind the clock back to the 50s and authors like Isaac Asimov, he predicted the rise of robots, not necessarily this century, early this century, but later on in this century. But he didn't predict the rise of AI.
Yeah, that's interesting because there are people who are talking about AI now. Even the guy who founded Sam Altman, from OpenAI, he's warning people about it, about that the need to regulate it and to put rules about it right now.
Yeah, I agree we need to regulate it, and I agree that there has to be some rules, And there has to be an international decision about how we deal with rules. For example, the
maybe
three
people
rules.
who use it need to be licensed or something, and there has to be some licensures or different steps of licensure. I don't know.
For example, what I was going to say is Isaac Asimov's 3 rules of robotics or the 4th rule, including the 0th rule, actually have applicability within the AI realm. Right? Is that basically a robot or an AI should not cause a human to be harmed in any way. Right?
Exactly.
Robots have to live by their own program, provided their own program is not inconsistent and causes them to harm a human being.
Exactly.
You can translate that one to an AI, and I don't remember the 3rd rule.
The
zeroth rule was actually about society.
These are things that is going to be looked at, because doing videos and then changing videos or creating them through AI is going to be something that is going to be looked at, not only from a creator standpoint, but also from a legal standpoint. So there's going to have to be a whole new set of legislation, court cases, to determine what these things have to be, and there would have to be some regulations put in place so that people don't use it for the wrong reasons.
I think there's a whole heap of difference between using AI to get an image of me kissing Marilyn Monroe, for example. If I were such a fan of Marilyn Monroe, there's a difference between using AI to have me kiss Marilyn Monroe than because everybody knows it's fake, right? Everybody knows it didn't happen because she was dead by the time I was kissing age, right?
Kissing age.
I don't remember exactly when she died, but she was dead by the time I was kissing age, right? That's the fairest way to assess it. And so those sort of things are fakes that are done for our own personal pleasure, right? And hey, your husband might well take offense if you make an AI picture of you kissing Richard Gere, but again, that's between you and him.
Mr. Richard Gere.
No, between you and your husband, if he was jealous of you kissing Richard Gere. Right. It's so some of these can be, some AI can be good, but can be just pure fun.
And some of it can be so creative and so knowledge driven. Some of it, like say we could start doing things and drafting legislation, and use some of that stuff with our knowledge to draft legislation and make sure it coordinates with other legislation. And then of course we'd have to check it to make sure it's truly coordinating and truly possible.
You see, I'm not a fan. I have to say right up front, I am not a fan of using AI to do inventive, creative things. I'm going to write my blog. I'm going to write website articles. I'm going to do
mine.
I don't want an AI doing that stuff. I'm interested in doing that.
I can almost tell when something's written by AI.
Right?
Don't you? It's very stultified.
I don't need AI to do my marketing videos. I can do that. Thank you very much.
Because if I want something stultified, use AI. And it's boring.
But again, something like AI is all going to change. What we know today here in the beginning of first half of 2025 is nothing compared to even what the first half of 2026 is going to be like, or even 2036.
And this is something we have to watch, because things are going to happen where people have to respond. The legal system has to respond. Like, what happens if I start producing a video that shows Peter holding a gun and going out around his neighborhood shooting the gun at everybody? And and then there's gunshots reported in the same neighborhood. Okay, so and there was you didn't do anything like that, you know.
Yeah,
And then,
I was sitting at home having a beer on the
yeah,
deck.
you're having a beer, one of your bone shaker beers. Okay,
Yeah, I
so
was having a beer on the deck, you know.
yeah,
Hey,
so these are kinds of things. So we have to really watch how it's used and how it's implemented. Okay, so these are things that we have to be very, very careful, because there are some people out there who will try a lot of things.
and has to be metadata associated with it that says this is AI generated.
Yep, and it has, yep, AI generate, like we have with the little right-hand corner, it shows Grok, and it
Well,
actually shows, and I can go right in there, and I could do a search, and it actually shows what day it was produced and by whom.
Yeah. Doesn't have to actually, it's not about what you see, it's about the data behind it that backs up that
Yeah.
picture.
So, because it'll show Jack Smith using Grok or using chat data, ChatGPT, whatever, all these different, there's so many AI programs out there. Okay? And this is going to be amazing, because the different programs are going to be amazing, because I'd like to see what actually happens when competing programs work out there and what they're going to do. Okay? Or whether there's going to be programs that specialize in certain areas.
They're going to be stealing each other's stuff, guaranteed.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And there'll be court cases galore about it.
Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, so you'll have AI Engine 1 that's supposed to write legal cases, and AI Engine 2 that's supposed to write legal cases. And Engine 1 then figures out that, hey, why should I even bother? I'm just going to throw the problem at Engine 2 and steal it.
Yep, and to steal it from that number 2, then number 2 says, you stole my copyright.
Yeah.
Like some kind of, or intellectual property of some sort. So, I mean, this is, and then the whole intellectual property law is going to have to be changed and revised.
Yeah. Well, that's probably all coming down the line. And we, you know, nice for us to speculate, but AI is going to change a lot of things, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And videos and videos, audios, and you know, and images are only the peak of it.
Mm-hmm. That's just the start of it, because people are starting to experiment and do things. It's interesting, and sometimes you can use AI just to figure out how. Like you could use AI just to figure out how, like to see something and see how it works. Like you said, can you write a 500-word essay about this? You know, and then you see it come down and it produces it. But then, of course, if you're a writer, you want to fix it and rearrange it and, you know, make it more personalized.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right. So I think we've kind of had quite a wide-ranging chat about the use of video evidence, and I hope everybody's learned something. So if you need to contact us, you can do so at Invictus Legal LLP and calling 905-688-5598. Call Angela or email Angela at Angela@We'reInvictus, or me at Peter@We'reInvictus.legal. And website is weareinvictus.legal. There you go. And Angela's favorite bit of the day.
Yep. So what you heard today on Spin Legal, including all the starts, it's a bit of rated R, is all the stuff here is not legal advice at all, nor is it something that I recommend people going out and doing. But anyways, it's this is not legal advice at all. So whatever you hear from us, we are addressing different legal issues of our time that people are curious about, that they talk about, and that we need to pay attention to. But it does not apply to any individual situation or any specific situation. So if you have a specific legal problem, whether it's from today's series or any of the other earlier series, you know, it's best to talk to a legal professional, a paralegal or a lawyer, and to see what you should do in your case, and if you have a legal problem.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that kind of gives us we're a little bit short, but we started late, so we finished early. So I think on balance, we've kind of given you value for money there.
Yeah.
And sorry about the late start. We will be back at 6 o'clock next Wednesday, which will be our last Wednesday.
Our last Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And then it'll become Tuesday.
Yep. So that will be Tuesday, the 17th of June, 2025. So Spin Legal moves to Tuesdays.
Good.
All right. And have a great day.